additional work needed. You want to make sure that you've examined the expert witness thoroughly. You want to make sure that there isn't any additional work that they might be performing that might alter, adjust, change, or add to their opinion. So in this section, we're going to talk about making sure that you have asked all the questions to get all of the information that's necessary to make sure that these opinions are final and that no additional work is being performed. When you talk about additional work, it's important to use the same baby step method that we've used in other sections. In other words, I will ask that expert, you have rendered your conclusions today. Based on the information that's been provided to you, are there any other conclusions which you are rendering in this case? Yes, no, maybe, it depends. If it depends, we need to find out what it depends on. If it's no, then you've sort of closed that box of opinions. If it's yes, you want to explore that. But I want to understand what additional work is needed. And I want to understand if those additional opinions require additional work. So, if the person says, yes, I have one other opinion might render, well then go through the test that you had before of finding out what that opinion is, what do they base it on, why can't they make it right now, what inhibition do they have, what specifically do they need in order to make that conclusion that they can't get now, why can't they get it now? And so forth and so on. And you may at the very end have to say, well, this deposition may have to be continued based on these new opinions that come out or amendments or changes. So it's important to understand whether or not all those opinions are final and complete and there's none others. But additional work talks about, is that expert going to go out and perform additional work whether or not they're going to render opinions? So am I going to ask that expert whether or not that expert performed additional work, or am I not going to ask them and take the risk that later on I may find out that they performed some additional tasks that ends up impacting on certain conclusions they made? So I will ask them, what additional work do you think you need to perform? Particularly if they've already said to me that they need additional work. I will then say to them, please explain to me what that additional work is. What is that additional work? Please tell the camera, the jury, the people, depending on where you are. If you're in a video, please tell the jury exactly what additional work you're going to have to do. And they might say, well, I have to perform additional tests. Okay, what additional tests do you believe you need to perform? Well, I need to perform test 1, test 2, and test 3. Okay, why do you need to perform test 1? What support is there in any treatise and any scientific theory for that particular test being required, necessary, or suggested in that particular case? Okay? How are you going to employ that test? Are you the one who can perform that test, or do you have to look to other people to perform that test? Is it some sort of DNA test where you're waiting on data from somebody else and then you're going to apply it? Is it something you're going to perform yourself? An uplift test on a roof? Whatever that case may be. But what's important is to understand exactly what they're going to be doing. Okay, let's go to test 2, and test 3, and test 4, however many tests they said. Okay, now that I've gotten all these tests, and you said you're going to perform these tests, what, if anything, do you believe those tests will impact on any existing opinion you have? Well, it has nothing to do with the existing opinions. Okay, great, you've closed that door. Well, it might have something. Oh, now we've got to go back to square one. Okay, please tell me each and every fact which you believe will impact on that opinion. Or said another way, please tell me each opinion that you think could be affected by these tests. And you go through, and perhaps if you've done this in an organized way, that person has 3 opinions, and you can go through. Let's start with opinion 1. Please tell me how these additional tests, or additional test number 1, or this additional work is going to impact on your opinion that the weapon must have been held in the left hand, or that the DNA sequencing showed X, or that this chemical makeup was as a result of Y. I want to make sure that I go through and I ask those questions. Okay? I'm finding out the additional work they're performing, but I'm also finding out what impact that additional work will have. If the person says it doesn't affect the prior opinions, you might ask why. Unless it is obvious, have them explain, well, this is a completely different set of tests, or I'm looking for something else, or the only reason why I didn't render this opinion is the testing hadn't come in yet, or that I needed this test in order to perform another test after it. So in other words, this test proved to show something, the existence of something or the absence of something, and that therefore that told me that I needed to do another test. So I want to make sure I go through that. I want to make sure why they need that additional work, and that it is clear in the record that there was some triggering instrument that made them say, I had to do it sometime after this depo, or sometime after I completed all my other opinions. I think you get where we're going. The concept is to be thorough and make sure you find out each and everything they need to do. Okay, in addition to tests, is there anything else you need to do? Or any additional work you're going to be performing? Yes. What is that? Well, not only do I got to perform tests, but I have to speak with Dr. Smith. Okay, why do you have to speak with Dr. Smith? Why haven't you spoken with Dr. Smith until now? Maybe they haven't spoken with him because they needed the results of a particular test. Maybe they haven't spoken with him because they're purposely waiting to ask, to see what kind of questions you asked. Who knows? But we need to explore that. Please explain to me why you didn't speak to Dr. Smith before this deposition. Did you think it wasn't important? Why didn't you think it was important? Why didn't you find out that data which he's now revealing? Tell me everything that you intend to speak to Dr. Smith about. And tell me how you couldn't possibly have gotten that data before this deposition. Now you can go into communications they have with the lawyer and other people to determine whether it's work product or not, to determine whether or not that particular type of communication is really somehow angled, like they're purposely not having the communication for some strategic benefit. Either way, you're going to probably get a chance to take another deposition, but you have to set it up. Because sometimes, say in a federal court system, you might have a limited number of hours. You may have exhausted those hours, so you need to give a good reason why that judge should now provide you with extra time. So you need to set this foundation for that reason also. So I've asked the person what additional work they need to do. If there's tests, if there's other things, if they're going to write another report. Well, once you do this work, is it your intention to write down anything? Is it your intention to render another opinion? What is your intention, if anything, once you complete these tests? Is your intention any different than the existing ways in which you wrote these opinions? However you dialogue that, however you ask that question, the key is to get them to see if they're following a pattern, to see if they're going to do it in the same way, to see if they're going to use different fundamentals or the same fundamentals. Will you be using some other type of analysis or some other way in which you write this report by the nature of this test? Or please tell me if there's any other way, or please state the different ways. I think you get where we're going. The concept is to make sure I've exhausted that aspect of it and I've gotten each and every aspect of the additional work that needs to be performed. Okay? If other people are being involved, I need to find out why those other people are involved, why they weren't involved before. I want to find out if this data could have been gathered earlier and they just chose not to gather it. I want to exhaust all of those areas. This will give me a good understanding of what more has to be covered and whether that witness has somehow purposely not gone forward, which may yield some benefit to you later on. It's important to be deliberate. It's important to take your time in making sure that you have gotten every piece of information in this deposition. That you have made sure that if anything else is going to occur, if any other opinion is going to be rendered, if any other thing is going to happen, that you're made aware of it. You may, if you haven't already, want to ask them, do you intend to change your opinions based on any one of the opinions that has been provided by essentially our side, by the plaintiff, by the defendant? If they say, I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe, okay, let's start with the first of my four experts. Expert number one was Dr. Jones. Okay, do you intend based on what you've been provided by Dr. Jones or any other data related to Dr. Jones' opinion, are you going to change your opinion in any way? Yes. Tell me how you're going to change that opinion. Or tell me what specific facts in that report make you look at your report differently or make you want to perform another test. And exhaust that. Okay? Why didn't you perform that test beforehand? Because I'm going to show, how did you not anticipate that? How did you not do those things? And make them say either that Dr. Jones is an absolute idiot or did something weird or whatever. Because whatever they say, you're going to be able to lock them in. Remember, I don't care what a witness says, so long as they say it. What they say will lock you in. Then go to the second one. Okay, do you intend to render any other opinions or to change or amend your opinion in any way based on Dr. Smith's expert opinion? No. Okay, that's out of the way. Do you intend, and you get where we're going. The concept is to make sure that you've closed this loop, that you've made sure that they can't come back later and say, oh, well, after I read their reports, I changed my opinion. Is there any document that you've seen since the time you rendered your report that makes you feel as though you need to make an edit or a supplement to your report? No? Okay. Yes? Okay, what are those documents? You might go through and ask them if depositions were taken or opinions rendered after their opinion was concluded. You might say, let's say it's a deposition. Did you see a copy of the deposition of Dr. Crane? Yes, I did. Based on reading that deposition, do you intend to change your opinions in any way? No, I don't. Maybe, yes, no, and then you go through the questioning. If they say they haven't read it, you say, why haven't you read it? Let them tell you the lawyer didn't provide it to them, somebody didn't provide it to them, they didn't think it was necessary. Whatever they say will be helpful to you. But the concept is, I'm asking the question. I would go through every single deposition or everything that was done afterward. If you think it's possible, they might perform additional work, supplement their opinion, or do anything. So that you basically have a finite picture of everything from DNA to the date that this deposition ends, the time that this deposition ends, of everything that that expert could say. That will give you an incredible asset in mastering the deposition of the expert witness.